I'm super excited to kick it off to Ted. Thank you for joining us today, Ted.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Okay, I've been talking with nonprofits for a long time. They're very frustrated with their software, and that hurts me because I love software. I'm a software connoisseur. I've used hundreds of tools. I think it's really helpful. It makes our jobs easier, makes our lives easier, it helps us make sense of the world, simplifies a lot of complexity. So I love software. My nonprofit friends don't feel that way. And so here's what I'm trying to do. I think software wants to be your friend. I do too. I'm Ted. As Roberta said, I've spent the last 10 years building software and dashboards for nonprofits. I've seen a lot over the years, and here's kind of my takeaways of that. So, nonprofits are frustrated. They feel like there's too much. It's always changing, doesn't integrate the way they want, costs too much, and they don't like it. How did we get here? I'm going to take you back to August 24th, 1995. It's a $300 million marketing campaign for the global release of this product. People lined up at midnight all over the world to get their hands on this product. You probably remember it. It's Microsoft Windows 95. Three things I want to point out about this. Number one, software used to be sold in boxes at stores. Uh, that was different. For many people, this was their introduction to personal computing. So before this, most people thought of computers as something to be done at work. Windows 95 ushered in personal computing. And for me and many like me, this is their first time using a computer at home. We got a computer for Christmas. I think I was 6 years old. And, you started tinkering around with computer games, stuff like that. So that was number one, boxes in stores. Number two, it used to be updated in years. So this was Windows 95. It's followed by Windows 98. When I think it was 2000, maybe a Vista, XP. I lose the timeline, but you get the gist. What that means is that software was baked. You got it in a box, and it didn't change until you upgraded it somewhere down the road. And the company would try to persuade you to upgrade and buy the next version. Uh, that has implications I'll talk about in a second. Lastly, people used to wear bandanas and lots of layers. All right, there were four inflection points right around the year 2000. First, release of Windows 95 that ushered in personal computing. Second, Amazon and Google do this funny thing where they launch an entire business model based on you going to a website, google.com, amazon.com. At the time, Amazon was just a bookseller. But what this means is that you didn't have to buy software in a store to interact with Amazon or Google. You just needed to go to a website and you only needed a browser. And this was essentially free. Lastly, I think this was 98, 99, maybe 2000. I can't remember the exact date. Salesforce creates the SaaS business model. SaaS stands for software as a service. Essentially, what that means is instead of buying software in a store, in a box, we're going to give it to you on the internet, kind of like Amazon and Google did. And we're going to pay for it per user per month. And so your software will always be up to date. You'll never have to worry about upgrades down the road. It'll just always be the freshest version at any given time. What follows from that is essentially a gold rush for software as a service, a massive boom in revenue to companies building software as a service products. And you can even remember you used to buy Microsoft Word in a box at a store, and you don't anymore. Those are all subscription based. So everyone jumped on this bandwagon of subscriptions. And it's because there was a lot of money to be made in this process. This also means that software is being updated constantly. Rather than buying software that's baked that we can use for 3 years, they're releasing new features every single month. And that transforms this environment of how we're using software. So, how does this impact nonprofits? Let's take an example nonprofit. Let's say they have 7 employees. They do 500,000 in revenue a year. And maybe let's say they do a third in grants, a third of their revenue comes from donors, and then maybe another third comes from services or events or something like that. What software would this nonprofit need? They need a workspace for their documents and their calendar and their email. They need a website like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix. I think Solace is a WordPress shop. You need Canva for your brand assets, your fonts, your colors. You need something for doing your books, like ZipBooks or QuickBooks. And if you have employees, you need Gusto for payroll, or maybe you use QuickBooks for that. If you have donors, you take money using Stripe. And then maybe on your website, you have a widget for capturing those donors. And so that maybe you say use donor box on top of Stripe. Nonprofits are doing surveys left and right. You might use Google Forms or Typeforms or something like that. And if you're doing events, you might use Eventbrite for registration. And if you're selling tickets at those events live, you might use a point of sale system like Toast or Square. You've seen these at every coffee shop you've ever been to. If you do a lot of projects or you're managing like grant applications, you might use Trello or Asana. And if you are receiving grants and you need to track your time, you might use Toggle or Clockify to track time towards those grants. And the crown jewel of software is the CRM, customer relationship management software. Salesforce was one of the pioneers. You might use Salesforce or Monday or HubSpot. And this is not even all. There's so much more software you could even use. You might use Slack. You might use Zoom like we're using now. You might use Calendly to manage your calendar. There are so many tools. This is just the software on the screen. There are hundreds and hundreds more I could have put on here. We have to choose. I'm not recommending these specifically, but we do have to make choices. And making these choices takes a lot of time, energy, and it's no surprise that people get overwhelmed and feel a little bit of decision fatigue. So, and not to mention, a lot of these tools are competitors and don't want to integrate. So you end up with a tech stack where things don't work together and everything's in different spots and we can't make sense of the world. So what do we do about it? First, how this feels. Feels like you're drowning. It's always changing, so you can't keep up. You might remember when every software under the sun had a new AI feature about a year and a half ago. That was a really overwhelming, and most of it wasn't very good. It's because they can release new updates at any time, and they're constantly having to stay relevant to keep off their competitors. There are so many tools. How can you possibly choose the right ones? So, what can we do about it? Here's what I'm suggesting 5 things. Number 1, we're going to have to get Zen. We have to accept change. Software is going to continue to change. Not only that, it's probably going to accelerate. When we think about our software, we have to hold it loosely. So we can't white knuckle our tools. You probably know someone that's still white knuckling an Access database from 15 years ago. It's probably because they've been burnt by software. They don't like change. I understand where they're coming from, but we can't do that. We have to be able to adapt to introduce new tools to the systems that we work within all the time. We have to know that the window of utility for our tools is brief. They may only work for us for 2, 3, 4, 5 years before it's time to swap them out for something new. So we have to think about our tech stack in a modular way that we're not committing. These are not marriages to these tools. We are renting all of this. That's why we're paying month to month for this. So let's accept that the window of utility is brief, and we might have to swap tools out. I suggest that you reconsider each tool in your tech stack once every 3 years. Don't do them all at once. That would be overwhelming. But have a calendar or a cadence where you're reconsidering, is this tool still working for us? Has our process changed so that this tool still serves it? Or maybe it doesn't, and we need to find an alternative. Within 3 years, 5 new tools will have popped up on the market, and maybe they're a better fit for your needs. So number 1, we have to accept change. Number 2, we have to define our process. So a lot of times I'll ask a nonprofit about their process for, let's say, running an event, and they'll say Eventbrite. I'm like, no, that's your tool. That's not your process. How do you run events? What is the special way in which you organize and manage the events that you run? You might use Eventbrite as your tool, but the tool is not your process. To do that, we got to be specific about our process. There's a framework called the So That framework that I find really helpful. So let's use an example. You have a lot of donors, you're trying to nurture relationships with them, and you feel like you're dropping the ball. So you might say, we need a CRM so that we can manage relationships. That's good. That's a good start. You're probably right. CRM stands for customer relationship management. So that may not be, I think that's what it stands for. I actually probably should look that up. It's something with customer relationship. We need a CRM so that we can manage relationships. That's good. That's not very specific. That doesn't tell you which CRM or what how you go about nurturing relationships. So let's get more specific. We need a CRM so that we can touch base with our donors every 3 months. That's more specific. That is saying this is our way of nurturing relationships. We don't want a donor to go more than 3 months without talking to us. This probably happened for a reason. Maybe you forgot about a donor. They forgot to give you $10,000 at the end of the year. And now you think about that a lot and you don't want to make that same mistake again. So you've made this new rule. We can touch base with our donors every 3 months. And that's a rule for your organization. I think we can do better. We need a CRM so that we can set automated reminders to connect with our donors. Now we're really getting specific, and now we're designing the tool to work for us so that we add maybe 5 or 6 of these so that we need to set automated reminders. We need to have a place for our goals, and we need to be able to attach our documents, and it needs to integrate with Slack. Add all of these things that you need, and they become your shopping list. Add those into Google and make it a really long search and make Google really work for this when you're buying a CRM. Be specific about your process. We decide our work, not the tools. It's not the other way around. The tools will serve us as we do our work. So you might be saying, but I don't know what's out there. There's so many amazing things software might be able to do for us. How can we create our process without knowing what's possible? Don't do that. Here's what I'd say. Don't chase dream features. Wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if that phrase is the road to software hell? It's going to lead to complexity. It's going to lead to bloat. You're going to buy software that's way too complicated, way too sophisticated that you're not ready for, that isn't justified today. Instead, say, we can't function unless. Software is at its best when it solves real and present problems today. Forgetting about our donors is a real and present problem today, and we must have a tool that can remind us every 3 months for our organization to survive. Start with that. But once that problem's solved, move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And what you'll find is that a year down the road, after you've solved problem after problem after problem, you're doing some really sophisticated stuff. You can't chase dream features. You can only grow into them. Abandon the hope of the one-stop shop. I love this idea. Let's just get one software to rule them all. We don't have to choose between hundreds of tools, and we don't have to configure all of these tools and try and figure out how they're going to work together. We'll just buy one software and rule them all. And by one-stop shop, I'm saying like it's your events and your payment processor and your bookkeeping and your project management and your time tracking. There are software that will try to sell you on this. I think it's a mirage. Here's number one. The thought is this will eliminate decision fatigue. The issue is with that is as soon as you buy that one-stop shop, you have to configure it. Well, which modules do we turn on? And do those modules integrate the way that we thought they would? And which settings do we need to set? All of that configuration work that you would have to do in that one-stop shop is the same exact work you'd have to do if you bought it from 10 different tools. It actually doesn't save you a lot of time. And the other thing it does is it gives you a worse version, or at best, a mediocre version of all the tools that one-stop shop replaces. So it limits your options and really doesn't reduce your work. Here's the other thing people say. If we just had a one-stop shop, everything would be in one place and I could find something. I think maybe the chief complaint I hear from nonprofit leaders is, I just can't find anything. Here's the challenge with that. I love the idea. We're going to all put our documents in this one-stop shop tool to rule them all. The issue is we might export or like download a document from that, attach it in an email, and send it to someone else. And then they're going to download it on their computer. And as long as we do these behaviors, like attach a document and send it to someone in Slack, we're going to have to search for stuff forever because people are just squirrels. They're going to go wild. And the tool is not the solution to that problem. Becoming the boss of your software is, and making thoughtful rules, which means we need to make the rules. So if you are using 10 to 15 different software, they all will have an upload button. Where do you put your documents? You put them in Google Drive? Do you put your receipts in QuickBooks? Do you put your proposals in your project management software, or your grant applications in your project management software? Or do those go in Google Drive? Do your customer profiles, if you have a document about your customers or the people you're serving, where does all of this stuff go? If you don't make the rules, your team is going to follow the lead of your software. Your software is not necessarily thinking about your organization. They only see you through the keyhole of their software. They don't see your holistic tech stack. They also are really incentivized to be sticky because you got to remember you're month to month. You can leave at any time. They want your documents because that makes their product sticky because the more documents you put in, the harder it is for you to leave. So we have to think through what do we want these software tools to do for us? And how do we organize our team and orient our team around making these rules so that we know where we put stuff so we can find the things that we need? None of the tools in your tech stack are going to coordinate. It's not in their interest. They only see you through that keyhole. And so they're not going to say, Asana is not going to say, hey, for your organization, you guys only put documents in Google Drive, so don't upload them here. That's not how it works. We have to set the guardrails for ourselves. This is how we become the boss of our software. Number 5, I would say the root of most heartburn with software starts with how we set expectations. We have to manage expectations. There's this pattern called the Gartner hype cycle. It's a macro pattern, and it basically goes like this. There's a technology trigger, followed by a peak of inflated expectations. Everyone gets really excited about it. It doesn't live up to the hype. There's a trough of disillusionment, followed by a slope of enlightenment and a plateau of productivity. A classic example of this would be the dot-com bubble. Another one, people are saying, you might remember VR, when Facebook changed its name to Meta and went all in on VR. You could think of crypto has recently been on different parts of this journey. And right now, people are debating, where is AI on this hype cycle? This is true in the macro. I think we can all see this play out. I'll also say this is overly simplistic. It's never just one journey. There's lots of ebbs and flows. I think it's also true in our organizations in the micro. So there's this software doom cycle where you introduce a new software to your organization. That's the technology trigger. Everyone gets really excited about it. It's shiny, it's new, it's going to do all of these things we've never done before. There's this peak of inflated expectations, and it doesn't live up to them. And we become disillusioned. Now, here's where it's different. A lot of times, what I see at nonprofits is they get to that spot of disillusionment and they say, oh, this software sucks. And they jump ship and they find a new one. And they do it all over again. And then they do it again because there will always be another software. There'll always be another alternative that you can try. So we have to get out of that loop by managing expectations and knowing what's really possible when we're setting expectations. How can we say this peak of inflated expectations, how can we be more reasonable in the expectations we set? And how can we have the grit and determination to push through some setbacks that are going to happen because it's not going to work out the way that we hoped? We certainly cannot get stuck in this doom cycle because if you do this 2 or 3 times, you might know someone that's clutching the Access database for 10 or 15 years. It's because they did this 2 or 3 times and they're saying, software is not for me. We cannot change and it's not going to work. If we're going to hold our tools loosely and we're going to adapt and change as those tools change, we have to be able to understand how to set expectations and kind of roll with the punches as we go. Okay, people think this is a technical problem. Just plug in the right tool and then it will work. Unfortunately, it's not. It's more complicated than that. It's a human problem. It's a culture problem. This is an adaptive challenge. Our organizations are changing. The software is changing. These are 2 moving things at once. And we have to kind of learn to dance in this environment. All right. So here's the opportunity. What if we take software seriously? You might, after I just said all that, you might be like, I don't want software to be my friend. That is frustrating. I don't like this environment. I wish it was different. I kind of share your feelings about that, but I also think it's an incredible opportunity. What if we take software seriously? So let me see if I can make that case. All right, let's take this example nonprofit, 500,000 in revenue, 7 employees. They're applying for grants. They've got small dollar donors. They're running events, and they're providing some sort of services that generate revenue. You've got 7 employees, but you're running this organization in 1992. With none of this software. How do you do it? How can seven people do that breadth and depth of offerings with, I don't even know how, like mail and fax machines, envelopes with cash in them? I don't even understand how it would work. And here's what I'm proposing. This nonprofit exists because of software. It's one of the most high leverage tools in the history of civilization. Software is doing profound things for organizations and for people, and nonprofits that take advantage of it, I think, are going to be really powerful. So I asked a grant writer, what separates the nonprofits who get funded from the ones that don't? She said very simply, data. If you think about software infrastructure, all those different tools that you have, all of them sit on databases, which means they have just columns and rows of data. And that data is the nuts and bolts of the work and the good that you do. And if you're able to harness the pipes that move the data, that spit out the report that says we can demonstrate our impact in this way, I think it's going to open up funding opportunities and totally new opportunities for your organization. Here's the case I'm making. Nonprofits that embrace software will be the most effective organizations, and they'll be the most fundable organizations. All right. One tangible thing we can do today. I think every nonprofit should know what their tech stack is. That map of software that I put on the screen, I think every nonprofit should have that. They should know here's the software we're using, here's the choices that we've made. And so I've created a quick survey to fill out. You fill out the form, and it basically asks you about 10 or 15 questions of what's in your tech stack. If you fill that out today, I think we're going to put it in the chat as well. You can use the QR code, or we'll put it in the chat. If you fill that out today, I'll get it, I'll respond to you, I'll have your email address, and I'll make some suggestions. And if you have questions, I would love for you to reach out. Here's my contact information. I run a tech savvy cohort for nonprofits a couple times a year. And I also write a weekly newsletter on how to build a modern tech stack for nonprofits. I would love for you to connect with me and chat more if you need help. And Roberta, I'm going to turn it back to you for questions.
Wow, that it is so insightful. I've heard Ted run through this a couple times, and every time I just always gain something new. Just you're so knowledgeable, but you make it so easy to understand. And I love the whole software wants to be your friend because you make it friendly and approachable. And so those are really good. If you have any questions, you can drop those in the chat. And we can answer those for a few more minutes. We got about 5 more minutes left on our call today. So yeah. Okay. All right. Here's a question I think that everybody's asking for. How has AI changed the landscape?
Oh man, it's changed it a tremendous amount. And I would also say it is changing right now. Like everything is changing very quickly. I think there's a few things. It's forcing us to think differently about workflows and about how data moves between tools. I think it's helping us clean data faster. Like I think I'm working with lots of nonprofits and they have dozens and hundreds of spreadsheets and the data is messy and it's disorganized. And just introducing the idea of saying, hey, that's a job for ChatGPT. Upload your spreadsheet, ask it to clean the data, ask it to help add more data onto it. And those types of opportunities are just like small wins that I'm seeing nonprofits
Mm.
add up. But I think the thing that I would suggest is go slow, find small ways to make improvements. It's not going to transform your organization overnight. And it will have the hype cycle. It's going to let us down. There's going to be something huge about AI that just sets us all back a decade. That the dot-com bubble, there'll be something in AI that happens. So hold it loosely and just find little ways to introduce it. But we have to adapt and change. So we have to find new ways to introduce AI into our organizations.
That's really helpful. I like the whole go small because I think either we're scared of it and want to stay away, or people like it's going to solve all of our problems, and then it doesn't,
Yes,
and we get frustrated with
neither.
our expectations. So I love how you just laid both of those expectations. Like it is very helpful, but hold it loosely. And so I think that's very helpful too. Like as great as technology is, people will always be needed. And
Yes.
We've always got it. So that is really good. What is a tool that you recommend a lot that just seems to be your go-to? People are asking for it, or you just find yourself recommending it? What's your one of your favorite tech tools?
I I try to be software agnostic as much as I can, partly because I just love software and I love all of it. Like I love so many different tools, but one
Mm.
that has really caught my eye that I've been recommending a lot is called Adio, Attio. It's a
Okay.
CRM, but it's the way they design it is really, really thoughtful. And they have AI baked in because it's fairly new. It's only a few years old. And the way that they're introducing AI in sort of a trickle, it's not all of it. It's just like around the edges, the philosophy behind it. I really like it. So I've helped a few nonprofits integrate into Adio. They've migrated from Salesforce to Adio, and I'm impressed by it. And I hold it loosely because there's lots of other tools too. And so I like this one, and they might make horrible decisions in the next few years, and we'll move on to the next one because we are month to month with these tools.
Yeah, which is that's a nice thing, right? To be month to month. That's a perk of it. It's interesting that you said. I was just thinking this morning how like we have that one thing that works so well for us, whether it's a marketing strategy or a tech tool or a way that we solved a personal problem in life. And like we feel like this is the answer for everyone and everything, right? And it's like it might have been helpful there and then, and that's great, but that doesn't mean it's gonna always be the best for everybody. And even for us in organizations, like for every season. Like things change. So I love that you're saying, hey, always evaluate, always hold things loosely. Like we've always got to be involved, and
Yeah.
wait. So that's really good. So I know tech can get expensive, right? So we have this need for it. We've got to make it. So what would you say to a boss or maybe a board who says, software's too expensive. We've done it this way. We don't need to change? Because I think that's, especially with budget constraints right now, is a huge concern for nonprofits.
Yeah, I was talking to a nonprofit leader last week, and so much of their work, like the delivery of the services they're providing and the like program itself uses software for nearly everything. Like 95% of the organization is running on software. And the controller was saying that the right budget for software should be like 3% of revenue. And I just was like, boggled my mind that they could think in that way because I'm like, it's 90% of what you do. If you
Um,
are paving roads, you
oh.
don't set aside 3% for the tools to pave roads. The function of what you're doing, you're using these tools to do good. Software is the vehicle by which you do so much of the good that you do. If your team's spending 90% of their time using software, the sticker price on the software is a fraction of the actual investment of it. And so, what I try to do when someone asks me, like, well, software seems really expensive, if you're quibbling about a tool that's $60 a month versus $40 a month, you're talking about 10% of the cost. The 90% of the cost is how much time your team spends using it. And if they like the one that's a little bit more expensive and it makes them more productive and more effective, it'll be way cheaper to just spend the money on the tool. It's not the sticker price, it's the aggregate time we spend using these tools. So that's kind of how I reframe.
I love that. You talked about as an investment and not just the aggregate time, but I think right when our job is easier and we can do more good with that, like then we're going to be happier. We're going to stay longer, right? So there's just so
Yes.
many tools, I mean, not tools, effects of that investment. And when you break down, like you said, $20 a month, what is that really in the scheme of, you know, on the cost? And so
And
that
and
is,
maybe I'll
yeah, go
mention
ahead.
that nonprofits are super sensitive to cost. I totally understand that. There's lots of cost pressure on them. I think that's misattributed, but I would also say one thing you should do is look at TechSoup and ask every software company whether or not they have nonprofit pricing because they almost all do, even if they don't advertise it. One software I know they don't advertise it, but they offer 30% if you ask. So make sure to ask. That's a great way for nonprofits to save money.
That's huge. Yeah, Solus Media, we do nonprofit pricing. That's really helpful. Such a good key takeaway right there. Well, wow. Well, we are out of time. I thank you, Ted, just for doing this out of the goodness of your heart to share with our audience. If you are on the call here, I'll put the link for the QR code in the email that I'm going to send out if you're just watching this as a recording later. And please reach out to Ted. He's just so friendly and so helpful and just has such a big heart to help people. So, Ted, thank you. And sign up for his newsletter. It is so good and just easy to understand and yeah, just really makes it all friendly. So thank you, Ted. Thank you everybody for your time and everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me, Roberta.